Today is feeding day for my blue tongue skink, so I figured I would make an update video on his diet. I previously mentioned that I would use snails as part of his diet, which you can. Snails are a favorite among lizards, especially blue tongue skinks. They are specialized snail eaters. Their jaws are strong enough to crack snail shells. So in the wild, they would be eating snails. I no longer offer that for my blue tongue skink, but I will if I have my hands on some, and you can buy some on Amazon, the canned ones, or even at your local Oriental market. Make sure to rinse it off with water to wash off any spices or salts that comes in the cans, and they should be fed um, as a treat rather than as a permanent diet because of the high fatty content. Otherwise, this is what I usually offer. A lot of insect feeders, especially low-fat feeders like the hornworms, is really good for lizards in general. They're high in calcium and high in moisture. Perfect for bearded dragons. I love to give these to my bearded dragons. I also give them to my leopard gecko. So blue tongue skinks will also take them. I have yet to find a lizard that would refuse a hornworm. They're favorite among most lizards. And also other insects I would include are mealworms. I sometimes offer superworms, but mealworms are just easier to store. You can put the rest in the fridge. Like I have the rest of them in here. I can put them in a refrigerator for later use, and they would still be alive a week later. Just make sure you add the day before you feed. You give them some lettuce or vegetables to eat the day before you feed them. And they will wake up within hours on room temperature, so you don't have to worry about them dying in the cold. Your refrigerator should be about 50 or so degrees. Not the freezer, the refrigerator, and it will keep your mealworms alive. Too cold, it will die. So don't put them in the freezer. And these are just small mealworms. You can also use large mealworms. I mix it up in there. I also use I don't know if you can see, these are freeze-dried crickets. I usually use live crickets for other lizards, but my blue tongue skink will eat anything, so I use freeze-dried, and they're just as good as a treat, or you mix them up as part of feeding. And my blue tongue skinks eat once a week. An adult blue tongue skink should not eat more than twice a week, depending on its health. If you have a generally very healthy lizard, once or twice a week should be enough. If you notice that your blue tongue skink has started picking at its food and not eating the salad, as you know, I also added some vegetables. If it's not eating the salad but everything else, especially the meaty parts, they are not hungry. You don't want your lizard getting spoiled like that. He should be eating everything on his plate. And the red pellets are just some pellets I picked up at an expo. They were giving them out for free. Generally, I would not even spend the money on it. You don't really have to. This is more like, if you get your hands on it for free or at a really deep discount, it doesn't hurt to have it. The bright colors seem to attract bearded dragons very well. My former bearded dragon used to eat these really, really well. And it's some freeze-dried peas inside, as you can see. But this is not required for blue tongue skink. You can if you want, add it as a treat, add it in its food. It really doesn't harm it, but it doesn't really do anything for it. It's just something colorful for them to eat. I also add some fruits. There's some bananas in there, sweet potatoes, salad. So how much meat you should put in there? Like I also use a tablespoon, about this much, of dog food, canned dog food. I use Blue Buffalo chicken with vegetables. Chicken with garden vegetables is a good brand. Merrick is also a really good brand because Merrick canned food has a mix of everything. It has cranberries, blueberries. If you could afford the Merrick one, get it. The pate version, not the mashed type, the gravy type. You just get more out of it if you get the pate type, and you can mix it with your salad. Blue tongue skinks are known not to eat their salad. They're like little kids. They don't like to eat their vegetables. So mixing it up, add a little bit of water, would convince them to lick up and eat up everything. So not too much meat on the canned food, the dog food. I don't use cat food because they're too high in protein. Some blue tongue skink owners use cat food, and which is fine. You can if you like. It's my preference not to. I like to use the more generic. Doesn't have to be grain free. Dog food, only about this much. Mix it up. The rest is just vegetables, mostly insects. Insects are good for them. Nope, not getting out. Insects are good for them. And make sure you dust your food. Calcium with D3 and multivitamin. Multivitamin doesn't have to be that picky, but make sure you have calcium D3. It would say on it, on the container, with D3. If it doesn't say that, that means it doesn't have it. Make sure you get the one that has it. And lastly, I do not feed pinkies, mice pinkies, or red pinkies to my bearded blue tongue skink. I almost said bearded dragon. I don't feed these to my lizards at all. I mean, people have different opinions on it. Some do as an occasional treat. If you do, it would be a treat. If you want to feed as a diet, I would not recommend it. These are omnivores known to be on the forest floor, eating things like snails and slugs and invertebrates and so forth. And even some vegetable matter, some rotten fruit that fell from the tree. Pinkies are not something that they'll run into in the wild. You're not going to find these skinks in a red tunnel or mice tunnel looking for pinkies to eat. These are very high in fat, very, very high in fat. It has no nutritional value. So I don't recommend them. If you have to feed it as an occasional treat. So let me open his cage. There he goes. He's ready to eat. Other insect feeders you can also use are roaches. The roaches may not want to sit in the bowl, so that you may want to feed your skink or your lizard in a container or separate in place where the roaches will, when they run away, they don't end up hiding in the substrate. I don't like feeding roaches just because of the price. They charge, where I live, they charge close to almost $1 for a small roach. About the length of an inch. It's just not worth it for me when I can just feed it other insect protein for a cheaper price. You can see how he would take a mouthful of food and sometimes he'll spit it out. That's his way of picking at his food. He's picking at his favorite parts first. He's eating only what he likes, which are the worms and the dog food, and then he'll maybe sometimes spit out the lettuce and the vegetables. However, he will come back to it. Once he finishes his favorite parts, he will go back and finish the rest. If your blue tongue skink does not do that, it just spits out the vegetables and won't touch the rest, it means your blue tongue skink is not hungry. They are just eating their favorites and walking away. No different than a child just eating their favorite steak or their hamburger, their french fries, but they won't touch the broccoli. Another part of feeding I wanted to talk about is also for snake feeding. I already fed my snakes, and I will not be making any snake feeding video. That's a decision I made since the beginning. I agreed with Kevin McCurley from Nerd. In one of his videos, he mentioned he doesn't like to show feeding videos I think he meant mostly for live. But for me, I made the decision to not do either one. I no longer feed live anyway. I don't have to. All my snakes have transitioned. Those that eat live, I was able to transition them. But I don't want to feed live or frozen thawed in a video. I don't want to film it because to me, I like I respect life and death. These animals were bred and were then killed or put to sleep for the sake of feeding our pets. I don't want to videotape that. Maybe some other people are fine with it. I'm fine with, nature taking its course and animals got to do what they got to do. However, at the end of the day, if you want to see something like that, there are plenty of channels and videos who already does that, so you can watch it from them. But in my own personal preference, I just don't feel like it's something that should be used as entertainment. I can show you these as educational information, but I don't want to show you how my snake strikes and eats it, and watching it eat, it just serves no purpose. You can find that information from a Discovery Channel of how they do such things. Pretty much most people know how it looks like, So, and here's my cat, Gizmo. He's being nosy. So let's start off with pinkies. I feed predominantly mice. I used to feed rats. I don't have to anymore. I just switched all to mice. You can feeding rats is good. I just prefer not to, mainly due to I don't have to. My snakes don't eat rats. My ball pythons are gone. They used to eat rats. But since I'm no longer keeping ball pythons and the animals I keep prefer mice, I just kept it that way. So these are 1 day old pinkies. They're very small. They're very, very small. They can be as small as an inch or a little bit longer, maybe 1.5 inches. But these are about 1 day or 2 day old pinkies. You feed these to baby snakes, colubrids like corn snakes, boas, baby snakes generally would take these without issues. Make sure you don't overheat them though. Unlike the other ones with fur, these can actually, the skin, there's no fur, and they're very soft skin. It can break apart very easily, so you don't have to super cook them. They warm up very easily. They can even be defrosted and ready to go at room temperature if you let it defrost slowly. Oops. And my cat's being nosy again, my other cat. Yay, cats. Fuzzy mice. So after you get 1 day old, 2 day old pinkies, your snake is grown bigger, they can now move on to fuzzy mice. Fuzzy mice is what it says. It's when the hairs start growing out, but they're still blind. The mice itself have their eyes closed, or maybe they're about to open, but most of them would still be nursing and their eyes were closed. They just grow a little bigger in size and fur starts to coming out. And this is what you feed as the next step. Hopper mice is the third stage of growth. They have all their fur. They can walk. They can eat on their own. They have their eyes open. They're known as hoppers because it looks like they're hopping, but they can walk and move around pretty efficiently. This is when the size that most ball python breeders start using, or red pinkies is equivalent to hopper mice. So if you have a ball python, your breeder would typically use hoppers because they're cheaper, or they use red pinkies if they want to switch them to rats at the early stage. Hopper mice is very popular, commonly used for boas. Ball pythons and most boas do not start with fuzzies and pinkies for mice. These are too small. Do not feed these for your ball pythons unless you have a ball python that is extra small, or it's sick, or it had regurgitated and is trying to recover after 2 weeks of rest. Then you would want to feed something smaller in size. You go one size down to help it eat and digest a smaller food item, and then you will move it back to hopper. But hopper mice is generally the starting point for ball python hatchlings and most boas, and even bigger. Boas, based on baby boa, can even start with, a little bit bigger, like a small mouse, depending on what the breeder decides to use. Follow what your breeder used at the beginning until it starts eating for you, then you can switch your size up. But this is the size that they use for hatchling ball pythons. Well, by the time you get it, your ball python should already be eating at least 3 to 4 meals with the breeder, and it should be ready to move on to the next size. I recommend you to stay with the hopper mice at least 2 to 3 more times, because it is settling in your home and is stressed out. It doesn't adjust well to changes. For snakes like that, you want to keep things as familiar to them as possible. And once they're ready to go, they're eating at your home for 2 to 3 times, then you can switch it up to the more appropriate size, which is one step up. It would be either a red fuzzy, a large red pinky, red fuzzy, or a small mouse. But hopper mice is very popular in the industry and commonly used. I don't have any small mice. I have jumbo. These are jumbo. These are extra large mice. These are mostly males. These were used for breeding the females, and then they were euthanized for food. Most of them are males. Sometimes you get a batch of females that are retired breeders, but most jumbo mice are retired breeders. I recommend these if you have a snake that just, this is the biggest size you can go really for a mouse, is the jumbo size. I don't recommend these to be fed too much because they're high in fat content, especially the female mice. So you would want to offer these maybe once every 2 weeks to prevent obesity in your snakes. These may not fill the tummy of your adult ball python or boas. They may need something even bigger. So for a boa, like my Dumeros boa, would not take rats. He would not take rats. I tried to switch him. He literally attacked the rat, or he spits it right out. If I give him mice, he eats it just fine. And I have to give him at least 2 to 3 of these every 3 weeks to fill his belly, the same amount as if I were to give him one small rat. So it would take more of these to equate to one small rat or one medium rat, depending on the size you're feeding. So the bigger the rat, the more you have to use. So at this point, if you have a snake that needs more than 1 jumbo mice, it's best to consider switching to rats. And if you have a snake that's still growing. For boas, it's best to go to rats to save yourself some money. But that's just in my opinion. They are fine if your snake won't eat rats. It's fine staying with mice. You just have to feed more of it. And lastly, I have these chicklings. I keep calling them chicklings. Chicks. Day-old chicks. These are chickens. These are really good to switch up in their diet, vary their diet for snakes that are great eaters. I don't recommend giving them these to ball pythons or snakes that are very picky. Snakes that would pick a favorite and not want to, change it back. If your ball python end up liking these, it will be a pain in the butt to switch them back to rats. However, I use these for king snakes. I used to feed these to my California king snake. I mix it right up. One meal he'll get a mouse, another meal he'll get a chick, and then I'll just switch it up, and it's fine. People say, these are not good enough. Actually, a lot of people are changing that thought. One chick is just as much nutrition as one mouse. So it's really not that different. In the wild, they would be eating different kinds of food anyway. They wouldn't just strictly eat rodent. They would eat birds and lizards and other snakes and so forth. So California king snakes, they'll take these just well. If they're big enough, they can take on these. I had a really large male, so he was able to eat these. Woma python. My Woma python takes these very well. My Dumeros boa love these. If you have a Dumeros boa that's being difficult to feed, these would usually break their fast. So this will help you get them eating, get them going when they're adult Dumeros. So these are fine to add into the mix when you feed them. Give them a little bit more variety. And, it gets boring when you just feed them the same thing over and over again. The only problem with these is not every pet store has it, not every website has it. All of these are purchased at Big Cheese Rodents. I'm not sponsored by them. I bought all these from Big Cheese. They have everything that you need, but you can also get these in other websites. I think Lane Labs offer these, or Perfect Prey also have these. So you can get these as well as quail chicks. Quail chicks are a lot smaller. These are chicken chicks. And that's it. So this is what I usually use to feed my snakes. And let's check my tongue skink to see where it's at. Yep, you can see that he picked up all the hornworms. People say the lizards are dumb, but you can tell there is a little bit of something in between the eyes. He's not just randomly stuffing his face. He's picking his favorites and going down the list. And he will finish everything. He's hungry enough. He will eat everything. If not right away, he'll go back to it and he'll finish it. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching.